Hey there, K-RAD radio listeners. It's your host, Chris with a K, and welcome to Season 2 of my little podcast that could. This season, we've got a brand new format, rad guests, and this fancy new voiceover intro thing that I'm doing right now. Do you like it? Well, do ya? Come on, guys. I got a lot of pent-up energy. Who else misses live shows? Please, God, help us. Anyway, this week I'm excited for you to meet my friend, Eastern European scientist and audio engineer, Dr. Pinchfist. Paging Dr. Pinchfist. I need a cure for gear acquisition syndrome. Dr. Pinchfist joins us for some socially distant interviewing with his partner in crime, Octavio Shaw, to talk about budget-friendly tools for home recording, rad comic books, the top metal bands from Tucson, and how different studios are adapting to recording musicians during the coronavirus. So, without further ado, enjoy this K-RAD interview with Dr. Pinchfist and Octavio Shaw, and stay rad. Hello and welcome to the K-RAD radio podcast. I'm your host, Chris with a K, aka Little Chris, aka your favorite podcaster here in the internets. And I am very excited because we have the insatiable, the incredible, the honorable Dr. Pinchfist.
Oh, that's just what I've always wanted. The most tasteful introductions that could ever be.
This is my job. This is what I do. And thank you, sir, for traveling all this way to be here with us. How was your trip? How was your journey?
Well, the flight was something of a nightmare. It was long and exhausting, and they didn't give me peanuts. That's half the reason I even fly, is because they have good peanuts.
What happened to the fact, I feel like back, and this sounds like an old Jerry Seinfeld bit, but seriously, what happened to good airplane food? Or it's just snacks, they just don't care. They're like, you guys are getting cheap tickets, so you get nothing on your 5-hour flight.
You get nothing and like it.
Right? It's just like life. They've just matched life, apparently. But I am super excited having the show because I have yet to have an audio expert on the show. And I know that is your study, your passion is the audio and specifically budget-friendly gear for musicians. And that's something as a musician that I'm always looking for, but I know nothing besides tone and what sounds good to my ear. I don't know where to go to get it besides what people recommend. So super excited to have you on the show. And I guess, do you mind telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, as anyone who watches the show will probably know by now, but for those of you that don't, I am Dr. Sven Vladislav Gerson Pinchfist. You can call me Dr. Pinchfist, it's easier. But the point of the show, aptly titled Dr. Pinchfist, originally Budget Gear Science, but my parent company, Audio Paladin, decided to do some rebranding and restructuring to make it more simple and marketable. The show is ultimately about the greatest paths to success for the working class musicians, the ones that want to get the great tones, the ability to record from the comforts of their own home and have quality, but they don't want to go broke doing it, especially because these days there is so much gear on the market. It will make your head spin. First you have Exhibit A and Exhibit B, which has 2 more switches, and Exhibit C, which has 2 more switches and a light on it. So it can be a little maddening to try and figure out where to even begin your journey as far as home recording and all of that goes. So that's the entire purpose of the show, is to get the best bang for the buck in whatever options are available to the home recording musician and or band or producer, engineer, whatever it is you're trying to do with your musical journey. I am here to help you have as much success with that as possible without breaking your wallet, especially these days, because who has lots of money anymore? I certainly don't.
Right. Well, that's amazing. Yes, that is exactly what we want. And I guess a good place to start would be for those that are, because that's like the environment, right? It's like the benefit of technology is that now everyone can make music, but not everyone can make high quality music. And it's affordable to an extent, but you have to know what to get. So I think one question I for sure wanted to ask you was, I guess we could do it in like a tiered step, but for like a beginner just starting to record his own musical project, whether he be, a solo guitarist or she be maybe a rapper. What would be like a recommendation for just a basic setup for someone if they were looking to get into home recording on their own?
Well, I would think a good place to start would be you need to have a computer of some kind, whether it's a Mac or a PC, something to that effect with a sound card, and because you need that ability. But a good budget place to start, you will need an interface, that's important. My top recommendation for budget would be right here, the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. It is the time-honored, time-tested budget recording interface that could do just about anything you need it to.
To do a recap, and so I think the first thing you had mentioned that we would want to have with us is a computer. That's necessary. So A, get a computer. B, you're going to need an interface, something like a Focusrite that's like maybe like what, $100, $200, something like that. Probably get one used for less if you really looked on the internet, right?
Absolutely, and that's something I would like to emphasize on. Don't let the word used scare you away. There's plenty of money to be saved in buying used gear. Now, the difference between used and one to next to nothing, the difference. Now, if I was to buy this from you right now, I can tell that it's working. I can tell that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Just because it's been used doesn't mean it's not good.
Right. So that makes perfect sense. So don't be scared of used gear. And if you're just getting into it, especially the laptop, whether it's PC or Mac, you need some sort of a computer as well as an interface. And then don't you need a DAW, like a digital audio workstation, right?
Yes,
that's
you
called?
do. And there are many options for that, all of which can do the job. Cubase is an option. Reaper is my personal favorite. Logic Pro is a good option. Pro Tools is also an option. It's a little expensive for my taste, but it will do the job. You could even use GarageBand if you really had to. It works. It's an option.
Got it.
And a lot of it depends on, you need to know what exactly your purpose is. Are you just a solo guitar player that's going to be doing your own songs at home? Are you doing a podcast? Or are you trying to do a full band? These are all things you need to consider when doing the gear, because like right now we have the Scarlett Focusrite and a microphone and the laptop with the interface, and that's perfectly okay for the setup. You don't need anything more. But if you're going to be doing something like recording a full drum kit, you might need a larger interface with something like 4 inputs or 8 inputs.
Right.
So you certainly need to identify your purpose before making your purchases. Know what it is you're going to do.
Know your purpose. Find it deep inside. Find it. Secure it. And then express it by buying the right gear, by going through Dr. Pinchfist. And I think that is a perfect route for someone that hasn't really experienced that on their own and kind of getting into it, because there's a lot of YouTube tutorials. Like I know that's why I first learned how to do my stuff was just from YouTube, but still finding the right gear is always really hard. So I think you got it. So we got to have a laptop, you got to have a interface like a Focusrite. We have to have a DAW like Reaper or GarageBand, or if you want to spend more money, go for like a Pro Tools, something like that, and then the microphone as well. But outside of that, that's really all you need for a home studio, right?
That's what you need to get started. That's a very good place to start. And then if you decide you need more, like if you're going to record a full drum kit, or if you want to be very exceptional and do a full orchestra, then yes, you're going to need a bit more than what I just mentioned, but that's a case-by-case basis.
Got it. Okay. And for those that are just tuning in, we're on the K-RAD radio podcast here with Dr. Pinchfist, and really want to just dive a little bit more into the audio side of things. So I think from a beginner level, that's there. And is that same setup going to work for someone that's wanting to get into producing music as well?
It will definitely get your foot in the door and help you learn exactly what it is you should be doing, because I'm going to tell everyone something right now. As much as we wish this was the case, there's no magical plug-in or piece of equipment that's going to make you good. You get good by practicing and refining your craft.
That makes sense.
So you could have all of the greatest gear that money could possibly buy, but if you don't have the experience and you don't know how to use it, it doesn't do you any good.
Got it. Okay. I think that makes sense here for those beginners out there that are just getting started with either your own podcast to produce your own music. If you're a singer-songwriter, you're looking to just track guitar or bass. That simple setup will work. What, from your experience, is some of the best, like, one step up from that for someone that's getting a little bit more serious? Maybe they've outgrown their Focusrite, maybe they've outgrown, they've become a better player. What's something that you would recommend as the first piece of gear that you would invest in?
Well, again, it entirely depends on what your purpose is. If you need... As far as quality goes, the only reason I could see off the top of my head outgrowing a Focusrite is if you're perhaps doing a full band setup recording. Like if you're going to record a full drum kit, unfortunately you can't get away with the 2 mic inputs. You're going to need 6, 8, possibly more than that depending on the kit. Or you might be recording a Celtic folk band or something, and you're going to have to mic up all of those acoustic instruments, because you will have the hurdy-gurdy over here, and you will have an acoustic guitar here, and then you will have a violin over here, and then you will have a stand-up bass over here, and then somewhere in the back you're going to have the vocalist and possibly the wash tub bass.
Right, and the side yodeler, which will also need a specialized mic for the yodeling. Excuse me. Sorry, that was a yodel bug that I had in my throat there. Transitioning over into your expertise outside of the actual recording equipment. What else would you recommend for your audience, I guess, to tune into or to pay attention to when they're looking to get more into the music? Like, what sort of do you recommend listening to certain artists more? Just practice, or what do you recommend for those aspiring artists and producers out there?
Well, first things first, do what you actually want to do, and by that I mean know what it is you want to do with music. Do you want to be someone that's in a performing and touring act? Do you want to be a person that just writes and records songs and releases them on YouTube or on the various streaming services? Or perhaps you're more of an audiophile type where you want to be in the studio. You're more of a producer type where you want to record other bands and be the big behind the scenes person. Are you more of a Bob Rock kind of person? I guess would be the good way to put that.
Got it.
And so whatever it is, once you've identified your purpose, any information you can get, whether it's recording magazines, YouTube tutorials, forums to an extent, I wouldn't spend a lot of time on those because there can be a fair amount of backlash between various users and debate on the hot topics. So I'm not going to say the information isn't there, because it is, but you need to be able to filter it.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. And they can go to you and your page to look at some of the recommendations that you have for people that are getting into all this. Am I right?
That is correct.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. Keeping that in mind, who are some of your favorite artists, Dr. Pinchfist? Who do you get down to on a sultry Saturday evening after a couple cold ones?
Oh, well, if it's going to be sultry, then, I would probably pick Miles Davis, maybe a bit of Third Force, and maybe some 90s R&B, if we're going to be sultry. If I feel like I need to start grooving, I might pick something like Operation Ivy or The Electric Banana, who is a very hilarious band out of Sweden. I like The Offspring a decent amount. And, of course, the British Invasion, The Maiden and The Priest and all that good stuff.
Yes.
But I try to give everything a chance as much as possible, because one thing I've always really tried to tell myself and others when I can is that, there's different levels of production with every single genre. Because, for example, you might be a punk band, and for those of you that like punk, especially the old school stuff, you can tell, it's not the highest quality production, but the thing that matters always is that the songs are good. And that's the first thing I would like to say. Make sure you have good songs before anything else. But just because you may not be into something, don't completely discount the knowledge, because, you could record a folk band and you may not necessarily be into the music, but you might learn some new techniques doing it that you didn't know about before, and then you can apply it to what you're more accustomed to doing. So listen to as much as you can, get as much information as you can, learn about the production behind the scenes, whether it's how a song was recorded, how a certain iconic section was achieved, or perhaps how exactly a process went from start to end, whether it was Rick Rubin working with the Chili Peppers on Blood Sugar Sex Magic, or Bob Rock doing the Black Album with Metallica. Very, very, very different types of production and different processes, but those albums are still standing the test of time and still selling even today. So I think there's something to be learned from everything. Even if it's not your forte or your cup of tea, one is never, ever, ever too old or too good to stop learning.
Great advice. And especially as an aging 20-something-year-old, you wonder, am I too old to learn how to produce music? Am I too this? That's for the young kids, or those that are in their 40s or their 50s or their 60s. Music is one of those things that you can do forever. It's like golf or bocce ball. You can do it, even if you got a couple hip replacements. As long as your fingers still work, or you can yodel, you're still good. And I think that that's something that people need to take home and they should be inspired by, especially with today's technology and the amount of resources that people have at their fingertips with YouTube and with, audio experts like yourself that you can find online. There shouldn't be anything that deters you from going after your passion. Even if it's just a hobby, it's something that I think enriches your mind, it enriches our culture, and you never know, too, especially the deeper you get into it, you may fall in love. And that could lead to a career path, or it could lead to something that totally shifts your perspective on what you're going through. So, Dr. Pinchfist, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here as yourself, the El Doctor. Before I let you go, though, I do want to know, what your take is on the quarantine, and I would like to know if there's anything else you'd like to shout out, any specific pieces of gear that really, really get you going, that are your favorite right now.
Well, as far as the quarantine goes, I'm going to say if you're stuck inside, this is the perfect opportunity to start looking at information, start learning. I mean, most of us are probably spending a lot of time looking at our phones and computers and TV screens anyway. Why not? You're already halfway there. Start looking up the gear. Start looking at the tutorials. That's actually what's gotten me a little further into some of the segments on the show that we're going to be redoing was because I had nothing better to do, so there was nothing but time to do the research.
Right. A renaissance, if you will, is what I would hope comes from the silver lining, if anything. I hope that people have more time to dedicate to art, and I think that you are onto something there. So it makes me super happy to hear that you guys are putting more time into the show and that you're looking to help people, with something that makes yourselves happy too. So I guess before I let you go though, any one specific piece of, is there a guitar? Is there a microphone? Is there a DAW? Is there a something that we can pinpoint that we'd like to highlight?
Well, as far as my personal favorites, as far as DAWs go, I have nothing but good things to say about the Reaper because that's what we use to records the audio on the show currently. It's the DAWs that I have recorded every single piece of music I've ever done. It's so user-friendly, there's nothing complicated about it, and for those that say it's for beginners, that's gatekeeping, don't listen to it. And then as far as DAWs, for the bang for the buck, I have to shout out the Focusrite Scarlett again. And just about everybody I know that records demos or does the songs from home, they all have one of these, and there's a reason for it. It's because it works, and it's not going to break your wallet. And as far as guitars go, I will say I can only give certain recommendations based off of my own experiences and what I've personally played, but if that's something you're first getting into or you're having a hard time finding the right one for you, go try a few out, because I might say that the specific one is the greatest thing ever. You might think it's horrible. That's a very, very, very subjective thing, but I personally like Ibanez guitars, and I like Epiphone guitars, and I like Schecters and Kiesels a lot. I think Strandbergs are pretty great. Godins are alright, and at the moment, I am playing a custom model specifically made for myself by Mills Custom Guitars. Dylan Mills of the band Hazen, located here in Phoenix.
Shout out right there. That'll be there later. We'll put that graphic there.
Woo!
Boom! Amazing! Again, Chris with a K, K-RAD Radio Podcast, here with Dr. Pinchfist. Please go follow, like, subscribe to all of their channels on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the above for some amazing audiophile advice. And make sure to reach out to him personally for any more hard-nosed diagnosis that he can help with the prescription for your ears, your mind, your body, and your soul. So, Doctor, thank you so much.
Thank you. And for everyone watching from our Facebook watching party, please check out this man's podcast, the K-RAD Radio Show. It would mean the world to me if you would do that, because this is just an absolute pleasure to be here, and he asks the good questions.
Thank you for tuning in. We live to be live, and we are live again on the K-RAD Radio Podcast, here with some extra nuggets here, and I think we all wanted to hear a couple lines read by our European friend here. I don't know how you feel about the movie Jaws, but is there any line that sticks out to you?
Well, everybody knows the famous improv lines that wasn't in the script, but it's something like, "We're going to need a bigger boat," or "You're going to need a bigger boat."
Ah! God, sharks scare the shit out of me. And do you like Austin Powers at all?
He's the sexiest man in the world. Of course I do. Well, second to this guy.
Well, thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor. I appreciate that. And I guess, have you ever watched the movie Dirty Harry?
Which one?
The Dirty Dirty. Not the Dirty Dirty, but The Clint Eastwood classic that we all know and love.
Of course. I think that went something like, what was it? There was a shootout and a car crash, and I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, in all of this confusion, I kind of lost count myself. But seeing as this is a .357 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and would blow your head clean off, you've got to ask yourself, do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Yes! 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 Okay, now I need to know if you've ever seen the movie The Silence of the Lambs.
I have.
And I know it's one of my favorites. I don't know how that translates in Europe, but you have seen Silence of the Lambs?
I thought it was good. Someone once asked me if it was a comedy, and I was, well, I guess depending on your level of apathy and intelligence, it could be funny, but I wouldn't say so.
That's fair. That's very fair. That's very fair. And I do need to know, do you endorse Kanye West for president?
Well, I mean, I'm a wacky sort of fellow myself, as you can tell, but I think even that's going a little too far for me. I can't wait to see what comes out of it.
That's fair. I think we're all sitting on the edge of our seats wanting to know what will actually come from the Kanye presidency. And I do want to know, if you did have to pick a VP, would you choose Taylor Swift or Bruno Mars?
Oh dear. I think if it were up to me, yeah, I might have to go with Bruno just because I know more of his songs. So I feel like, he wants to be a billionaire or a millionaire, whatever that song was. Maybe he could do it being VP.
That's fair. I think that's fair. And honestly, there might be a little friction between those two. Specific with Taylor Swift and Kanye.
Politics is tense enough as it is. You just don't need to add to it.
Right. The personal attacks, I think, would be entertaining, but not for the United States of America, unless you could call us the divided states. But, that's neither here nor there. But I do have a couple questions on this or that. So, real quick, I'm just going to rapid fire. Text or call?
Call.
Rap or jazz?
Probably rap.
Pop or rock?
Rock.
Whiskey or beer?
Beer.
Love or money?
Love.
My man. Money or fame?
Money.
Holla at you, boy. I love it. Okay. And something that I've always find interesting to hear people's take. Do you like Star Wars?
I do.
Okay. Do you have an opinion on who shot first?
Well, hot topic among the nerd community here. Depending on which version you watch, in the original version, Han was the only one who did shoot. Then it was re-edited so that Greedo shot slightly first, and then in a later edited version, they both shoot at almost the exact same time, but Greedo still shoots first. And, it's crazy, because the whole point of that, it was a tribute to the classic Westerns. The good guy has to shoot first, so that's what happened. Han shot Greedo before he died, and then he paid for the mess. That's what they did.
The ultimate outlaw. The ultimate outlaw. All right, couple more. Marry, fuck, cancel. Bill Murray, Kanye West, Sarah Silverman.
Marry Bill Murray, fornicate with Sarah Silverman, and cancel Kanye.
You heard it here. You heard it here. Got 2 more of these ones. Marry, fuck, cancel. J.K. Rowling, Post Malone, Lady Gaga.
Ooh. I would probably marry Post.
Solid. Solid.
That's a great answer.
What was the other 2?
We've got Lady Gaga and J.K. Rowling.
Do it with Lady Gaga and cancel J.K.
Boom.
Do you know
I still love the Harry Potter, but given the choices, I'm sorry, Wizard fans, nothing personal.
Do you know about the drama?
That's fair. Have you been tuning into any of the J.K. Rowling specific stuff with what she's kind of been in hot water for recently?
I'm somewhat aware of it, but I've been more or less trying to stay off the socials lately.
I totally understand that. And, most of it's negative, but is that the reasoning why? Is just because it seems like more of an echo chamber? Or what's your reasoning for being on social media less?
It's mostly that, like, just seeing all of the negativity is kind of disheartening, and it just affects me on a bit of a level, because I like to see people happy, and I like to see good things, and that's why we do the show, to spread the positivity and the good message, and it's just, it can be a little overwhelming at times, so I just need to unplug and go do other things and get to my normal frame of mind.
Got it. And, when you say other things, I know mostly that involves music. Is there anything else like fetishes, or is there something that... What piques your interest, Dr. Pinchfist?
Clowns. That's one.
Very European.
I like to play the guitar in my spare time. I like to read comic books.
Very good.
I like to watch. I like to watch mad scientist movies because. Look at what I am. I like to think I'm a little more down to earth, but sometimes my superiors think I'm crazy. My intern Carl just thinks I'm a little too much to handle sometimes.
That's fair. And you had mentioned graphic comics, or is there a specific type of comic book, or do you have a favorite genre or artist or comic that you've been kind of fixated on recently?
Well, I'm a big fan of the classic Marvel and DC stories, of course, but more so these days, I'm gravitating more towards independent comic books, because I think that's where more of the creativity and originality is coming from these days. So just to name a few, Rob Hicks of Spiral Inc. Comics, located here in Phoenix, Arizona. He does Succubus, which has a Kickstarter going on right now. He does Hooded Cobra, which is sort of an action, fun superhero thing. He does some variant covers for other things, so check him out. There's a book called Kill Count by Jim Hanna, also here in Phoenix, which is a tribute to the 80s and 90s macho action movies. So if you like the Rambo and the Predator and cheesy one-liners and lots of guns, explosions, and all that stuff, you should definitely look at that one. Some good friends of mine, Alfred Trujillo and Kara Nicole, also known as the AC Power Girl, they just came out with Fire Bitch issue 1, which is...
Fire Bitch! Yes! I like that! I like Fire Bitch!
It's fantastic.
Shout out to Fire Bitch.
Big shout out. Jay Photos, who has done some coloring work on the IDW Godzilla comics, and but he also has done something called 68 Zombies, which follows in the footsteps of Night of the Living Dead. It's actually a loose kind of continuation of it. So if you like the zombie things, I would recommend looking at that one.
Very good. And did you get into the Walking Dead comic before it turned into the show itself?
I did. Image Comics was something I was kind of big on for a while, because Spawn and The Walking Dead and Witchblade and all that good stuff. Super dark, super edgy, but that was the 90s.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, Dr. Pinchfist, your expertise and your knowledge here on these subjects has been gravitas and incredible. And where can we find you on the social medias, and where's the best way to find your guys' page?
Well, the main platform is the YouTube channel, simply titled Dr. Pinchfist. So that would be the first place to go. But there is also an Instagram page and a Twitter page and a Facebook page, all under the same name, where we will post updates and ridiculous pictures, and perhaps me filming Carl behind the scenes while he's not aware of it.
I like this. I would love an opportunity to mess with Carl. If there's ever a situation where we can find a way for me to mess with Carl, I would love to personally antagonize this man.
What are we talking about?
Personal assistant. That's my personal assistant. He's I like to think he's a charming fellow, but he's kind of dead on the inside.
I know the feeling. I know the feeling very much so. But hey, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. Again, your host, Chris with a K of the K-RAD Radio Podcast. Stay tuned for this episode that'll be aired. Thank you, Dr. Pinchfist. Please go follow, like, subscribe, share, all the above. We'll be on k-radio.com, and you can find us at all of our socials. So thanks for tuning in, everyone.
And do the same for this man right here.
Pia, pia.
There is a girl who lives in a house in the shadows. When she sees me, she comes out and lures me back inside. I'm not coming home tonight.
Hello and welcome back to those who have exited our live stream. We are back here again, and I'm going to take this mask up. But before I do, this is by a band called Snailmate, who was making these for sale, screen printing themselves. So if you'd like to check their music out and pick up a mask, if you don't have one, highly recommend it. Mask Up AZ. So yeah, here we are on the K-RAD Radio Podcast. Whoop. And we're gonna bring it down home a little bit. So, I guess before we get going here, now that Dr. Pinchfist has left us, what is your name, sir? Who are you?
I am Cole Musick, and I portray the character of Dr. Pinchfist on the show of the same name.
And my name is Octavio Shaw, and I'm the guy behind the scenes, so I do all the back curtain thing.
I love it. I love it. And the name of your guys' studio that we have, that you're actually doing production work from, what's that called?
It's called Audio Paladin, like
Holy Knights.
character archetype from D&D. Paladin, not pallets.
Wooden pallets.
Which is a Tucson-based studio.
Mhm.
And in this case, we do tracking, mixing, and production work, such as consultations and beginning to end production, all the way through tracking, pre-production, mixing, and mastering.
Amazing. Amazing. So that's where more of the gear expertise, like that's something that you guys are doing professionally. You've been doing it for a while, and Dr. Pinchfist is an offset that it has been, right? But how did you two get involved in that specifically with Palladium?
Well, Dragon Ball, I guess. That's how it started.
Dragon Ball Z?
Yeah, well, Dragon Ball Z. Like we have a friend in common that he told me, "Hey, I got this friend that looks like a Super Saiyan 3, and he loves Dragon Ball, and he's also a musician." So I said, "Yeah, let's have a cup of tea or like a drink or something, and talk about things." And apparently, years after, we became audio buddies off of that result. So we just started geeking out, and then it eventually evolved into production work. So
That's sick. And so are you both musicians?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, what do you guys play?
I'm mostly a one-trick pony. My big thing is guitar. I can kind of get by on other stringed instruments because I can play guitar. So like I could track bass if I needed to. I can do a little bit of harmonica and melodica, but nothing I would perform live. So,
Cool. And how about you?
A multi-instruments guy, mostly vocal and guitar work.
Tight. All right. And do you guys have like a specific genre that you guys is like your favorite to play, or like what do you guys like to just dig into?
Well, anything that's passionate, rebellious, and loud, I'd say.
Yep.
So that
Fuck
could be,
yeah, that's me too.
That could be hip hop, that could be punk, that could be metal, that could be hardcore, grindcore, whatever core we do.
Tight.
But it's we mostly like loud, rebellious, aggressive kind of music. But we can also do pop. We can also do country, blues, whatever genre. It's always interesting, but mostly it's rock kind of things. Just to generalize it, it's going to be like rock stuff.
Tight. Okay, well, I fuck with that heavy. Big fan of Black Flag, Rage Against the Machine. Do you guys have any opinions on like Fever 333? I feel like they're like a modern Rage Against the Machine. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to listen to Fever 333 at all.
I've heard of them. I can't say I've listened.
I can't comment on that.
That's
but,
fair.
You know, they sound like if they're comparable to the Rage Against the Machine, then you know
I
think
probably
it's,
like them.
It's like aggressive and politic based. I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. And side note, how funny is it that some people like had no idea that Rage was like all about like, you know, the political side of like, you know, anti-establishment, like fuck the government.
Yeah.
And then you find out that it's like being used as like this thing for anti-mask, and you're like, what? Like that's not. I thought that was jarring.
Well, I'm just. I mean, with certain songs, I feel like I would give a pass about like, okay, maybe you didn't read into it enough. But with Rage Against the Machine, I don't quite understand how one wouldn't figure out that they were a very political band. I mean, what machine did people think they were raging against? The microwave?
Right.
Could you do fuck you, I won't do what you tell me in a Dr. Pinchfist voice? Like for us?
Let's see
I
it.
can. Okay, so I'm some kind of European. Oh, fuck you! I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you! I won't do what you tell me. Audio Paladin.
Yes, I feel that.
The rage.
I feel that. Hell yeah. Well, you know, I guess from that standpoint, like, are you guys involved with any projects in Tucson? Because I know that's where the studio is based out of. Do you guys work with any bands closely? Or is there any artists that you guys are kind of excited about right now?
Well, upcoming artists here. Shout out to Stands with Fists. They're a local band that's been there. I'm gonna say forever in Tucson, Arizona. Omar Hernandez is one of the founders of that band, and he happens to be my brother-in-law as well. So
tight.
yep. So he's pending in the sense that we're going to record him. He's going to do his own solo thing or a couple of things for Stand With This. So I'm still not sure what he wants to do, but he does want to record a couple of demos. That's just on hold because of what's going on right now.
Got it, right.
Yep, and prior to that, we were working on a concept album here for a band called Beneath the Empire, which is a local band. They're doing this mixture of comic stuff, and Cole is the lead producer of that one. So it's mostly his brainchild, but I'm just there making sure that everything sounds good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He's there to rein me in and make sure I'm not going too far.
Can I ask what does a recording studio do during the pandemic?
They buy gear, I guess.
No, but really, like how is it affecting you as musicians?
It does affect in the sense that, you know, there's people are divided right now. So you have a camp of people saying, no, I'm not going to get out of my house, which is completely respectable. I'm not going to, you know, say anything bad about them. But there's also other people that want to be productive and want to do stuff. Again, it doesn't mean that that's better, but it's just that people sometimes can't afford just being locked down. So some people do want to keep working and, you know, take the risk, I'm going to say, because the risk is here real, at least in my opinion. I believe Cole feels somewhat the same. You expose yourself, etc., but in the end, there's people that can afford being locked down, and there's people that can't afford that. So in that sense, you have to respect that and say, okay, well, how can we work with you?
Right.
You really want to push this, or you want to wait? So in that sense, you know, recording studios, this, you know, being very transparent here, this is not my main gig. Audio production is something I do on the side. I'm a weekend warrior of sorts.
Sure.
Cole as well. So we're working class musicians, just to put it out in a very simple way. So I'm going to say that, yeah, it does affect anyone that's living off of this. You know, you're fighting a demon at this point.
Right.
It's pretty rough.
You're feeling the hurt, especially
Yeah.
because especially for anyone who is doing this full time, I think even more so, just because, again, like maybe you had clients cancel, or
Yep.
they just
Or
perhaps,
pending projects.
pending projects, or perhaps in probably a lot of cases, people like they were going to come in, they had the time booked, and then they had to say, "Hey, sorry, man, I lost my job." So.
Oh, true. Yeah. You can.
So
Absolutely,
I can't do it.
Right.
Is there
I
any
feel
like recording techniques that you're using right now? Like, you said like you have to get creative. Are they setting you mixes or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that I believe that there's a distinction between studios in this case. There's lots of audio productions, from live. Those guys are definitely effed up in the sense.
Yeah.
But people in their home studios or running commercial studios have to think about, okay, probably I can't track people live here in the studio, even though they're using multi-tracking techniques. They're better off just working off of mixing or mastering.
Right, and because that was my question too. It was like, okay, so like, have you seen an influx in more people sending you their files for you to mix? And then have you guys been open to the idea of like social distancing and like wiping the microphones down, or having a plan to like record so the artists feel more comfortable? Has that been like conversations that you guys have had?
I'm a friend with a guy in Hermosillo, Sonora, in Mexico. That guy's in the capital of the state, just bordering Arizona. That's the state of Sonora. So in the capital, I have someone that works with, they do government work, they do commercial work in the sense of they receive, like promotions for all the Walmarts there in Mexico. So this person has to do the jingles, has to do the sponsorships, the ads, and all that. So he really got,
Hit hard.
He got hit hard, exactly. So what he told me, because I drove to Hermosillo to pick up a studio desk that he made for me, because he's also doing woodwork. So,
oh, amazing!
Yeah, so
does he have a page or somewhere where that people can find him?
So sorry, it's in Spanish, but it's called El Buzón, which is El Buzón with a Z, and he does professional recording, mixing, jingles, and commercial work such as advertisement, voiceovers, and all that. So his name is Ramon Estrain in English, I guess. So he got hit hard, but so what he told me is, yeah, he has to wipe the microphones. There has to be social distancing involved. So people, in Mexico, I'm not sure, every country, I think it's a bit different as to the measures
100%.
that they take. So in Mexico, it's a big thing that they clean your feet.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, tennis shoes or whatever shoe you're using, they clean the
The sole.
The sole, of the boot or whatever shoe you're using. So,
I'd be willing to bet that that's in line with Japanese culture too, because in Japanese culture, it's something that like they don't believe in allowing, the bad energy that you step on your shoes inside of the home. So you take off your shoes as a sign of respect to the culture and to the home. But it sounds like it's more related to the pandemic than that. But I'd be willing to bet that Japan is on that same line.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's more related to the idea that, you don't know what you're stepping on, and you don't want to come into someone else's house and, spread the virus or something like that. So if you're going to eat at a restaurant over there in Mexico, they have to, they spray your shoes.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
I like that.
It's pretty funny. And they were this close to making everybody shave to work. So a lot of different ideas. So if I saw that in Mexico, I'm sure that in different countries there's different ideas and regulations. Maybe there's a country where you have to wear like a full face mask, or maybe
right.
social distancing is more extreme or whatever. But this is from my experience directly in the capital of Sonora. So this guy, he wipes the phone, the microphones. He has to clean everybody's shoes. People enter barefoot into the studio. So that's his kind of control. And I guess everybody's free to, act as they think is the safest way of operating.
Interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And I guess too, I know that I did want to bring up, because it was just in the news, with the whole Live Nation situation with
just like concerts getting postponed and then actually getting canceled, and then what's happening with those refunds. And like, have you guys heard anything different from what I've heard, or what's the latest from what you guys have been reading?
Well, I think Cole will be better at explaining that because I really didn't buy any ticket of sorts for this year. So, yeah, Cole can be a bit more open in that subject.
I have a direct one, and then I have a story in a second-hand story. So my direct one was there's a Mongolian folk metal band called The Who, not to be confused with the classic rock band of the same name, spelled H-U. And they had their debut album come out either last year or the year before, and I thought it was really cool. And I had actually bought tickets for me, Octavio, and his wife to go see them at the Rialto venue in Tucson because they were making a stop there. And you know, once the pandemic really set in and international travel was not being allowed, you know, of course, obviously that whole tour for that international tour for them had to be canceled because they were not allowed to leave. So in that case, I bought from the box office directly just to bypass service fees and convenience fees and all that stuff. So I was able to get a refund, but I was kind of bummed to not be able to see the show. Because oddly enough, we have actually not gone to a show together yet.
Yeah, that's weird, right? Like, a very long friendship, and we've never gone to a show.
So I was trying to fix that. And then a secondhand story that I heard about from an older friend of mine who is like a continuous concert goer, like all the time, told me that Bon Jovi had a tour going on this year, and that it was technically postponed because, like, well, no, I'm not going to cancel the shows entirely, but don't know when the tour is going to happen again because of everything. But with that, since it was marked postponed, Live Nation or Ticketmaster, whoever it was not giving refunds. So what Bon Jovi ended up doing was calling it canceled because, you know, like, people, especially now more than ever, they need to be able to pay their rent. They need to be able to pay the bills. And, you know, ticket prices these days are kind of high. So, you know, that could be a $200, $300, $400, $500, maybe more ticket. And so, you know, if the show's not going to happen anytime soon,
Where's the money?
Yeah, like,
right.
You could probably use that money for something more important right now. You might need
Bills.
it. You might need it right now.
Food.
And so he said, you know what? I'm just going to call the tour canceled, and when it happens again, we'll work with it from there. But he flat out canceled the tour just to make sure the fans could get their money back.
That's honorable, because I can tell you that, you know, obviously with artists being not so certain about where they can go, where they can't go, where they can perform, obviously, it seems to be that the consensus is nothing until 2021, at least with national acts touring through the States, going to other countries and things like that. And it's actually an interesting conversation with, you know, what do the local venues do? And it's something that, you know, Steve Chilton from Psycho Steve, you know, and some of the other venues in town and the owners, that they band together to help create, it's called NEVA, and it's actually this organization that they're trying to put forth some bills to get passed from Congress because their revenue is 100% gone by live shows. And it's something where we've talked, and I've listened to conversations where local music obviously is starting to come back slowly, but that's really the only way, and it's still only going to be 30% capacity. So it's kind of like they're leaning on the local artists to tide over until then, but hoping that, you know, something can get passed and some more support can be garnered for the independent venues, because, you know, between the artists and the venues themselves, they're really left kind of holding the bag right now, especially if they're, you know, planning these, you know, once every couple years. That's not something you can just, you know, cancel for a month and then restart, right?
But from a musician standpoint, you know, because we're talking about two different things here, right? Like a consumer of music, and also from a musician standpoint. I guess most of our experiences in this case has been, since we do audio production side of things, we're a bit more sheltered in that way. Like we're not so involved in the live scene. We can only hear things from from a third party in a way,
Sure.
Or a close source, but it's still something you don't experience directly. But I've seen in the internet that there's some noise going on with Live Nation, all these guys. I'm just speaking from what I'm seeing. I'm not really involved in that.
Yeah, but just as a consumer, and from that
only
perspective.
from a general standpoint, I'm just seeing that people are not that. Musicians are not that content with what's going on, so they're changing a couple of policies. So let's say that a lot of people bought tickets. Then Live Nation, associated with Ticketmaster in this case, they're saying things like, okay, well, our policies are changing. So they're updating their policies, and musicians are kind of rebelling against it. They're protesting. They're doing their own thing. They're doing their change.org thing. They're doing noise on their side. So I can't directly speak for exactly what those policy changes are, but there's been some. And Live Nation is just covering their ass in this way because they're saying a different landscape, and they're just saying, the world is changing, so let's change accordingly to that. So some musicians are saying, you're messing with our revenue, you're giving us more responsibilities than we used to have, so now the burden's on us if this happens or that happens. So pretty much it's more from a liability standpoint that Live Nation has been responding and changing their policies.
Right.
So probably, I'm not going to say that this is going to happen, but a lot of local places, they're looking at what the industry is doing and they're just following that model. So it could be against the musician in this case, or against what they, the advantages they sort of had before, or the policies they had to abide for before. Right now, the landscape is uncertain. So everybody's saying 2021, but who knows, right?
Right. Is there going to be a second wave? Who knows?
Yeah.
And, and I think that's the other thing too, is like, okay, it does come back. No moshing.
True.
That's my favorite thing to do at a metal show, is to mosh and to get sweaty and to get in the pit and get dirty with it. And when you can't do that, it takes away from the experience itself. And I think that, we're all waiting until that comes back full circle. But I think at this point, as long as people are responsible, and I think that as long as the liability is assumed by the concert goer that's purchasing the ticket, and the artists assume that responsibility as well, that, we can find a way to make it work. But I think that the question from a business standpoint is like, who accepts the liability if someone gets sick with COVID or Corona and, passes away, or a close related family member passes away? Who accepts that liability, from an insurance standpoint? It is, I think, what's holding everything up, because no one wants to take on the liability of it.
It's
hot potato right now.
It's like trying to tiptoe through a minefield. So
yeah,
I wouldn't want to be the guy that has to take responsibility for that. So as much as I miss live shows, I understand where they're coming from.
We don't want to kill you.
Yeah,
we just want to make music for you.
Yeah.
Shout out, to all those artists out there. It's such a unique time, I think, in history, especially, given the current climate. It's really interesting to watch it kind of unfold almost daily or weekly. But I guess, to bring it back to you guys and to bring it back to what you guys are doing, from the recording standpoint in Tucson and from the scene, what would be the most helpful way to help you guys? Are you looking for more artists to book right now? What would be the best thing for the studio? And how can we help you?
Well, I think off the top of my head, the first thing I can think of is, go to the Dr. Pinchfist YouTube channel and subscribe, and, please watch the content. Let us know if you like it. That subscribing and sharing videos, keeping up to date with us on the social media pages, and see what kind of nonsense we have on the way for you. As far as bookings and stuff, that's a little tricky at present.
Right.
Well, I'm gonna say, since the studio is at my place, there's two sides of how I approach audio production. One of them is I want to give back to the community. That's the Dr. Pinchfist show. That's my main objective. I want people to, as Cole says, that's the objective. People have to subscribe, follow us, and it's not only entertaining, it's also educational. So you're learning and you're laughing and you're laughing and you're learning. So it could be, that's the best way to support us. Now the second aspect is people can track in our studio, but that's not my main focus. That's more like a selfish kind of thing. Like, Cole, let's record drums and let's have awesome instruments and microphones because we like doing
Right,
music.
you genuinely enjoy great audio sound.
So if we get someone that wants to track with our great gear, then that's good. But that's not what we're looking for. That's kind of like a side thing. If we get clients that want to track, that's good. If we don't get them, that's good. That's not our main objective. We want to educate people. We want to help people. And I guess that's where the name comes from, Audio Paladin, that we're, the slogan or the tagline in this case is championing quality recordings. So in this case, it doesn't matter if you're paying for them. It doesn't matter if we're educating you about it. It's just championing the fact that you can get great recordings. Now, Dr. Pinchfist is mostly focused on like budget solutions for the everyday man. But I also believe that if you want to go into the higher end, you just have to be smart about things, right? Like, okay, well, at what point does my speakers, if I invest $1,000 and another $1,000 and another $1,000, does it actually return something back?
What's the ROI on that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that's our main purpose. In the future, I'm going to be focusing more on Audio Paladin offering mixing in itself because it's not something that anybody can do in their bedroom. So maybe some guy in New Zealand wants to mix something and they can send it out and they can send the tracks. That doesn't necessarily mean that someone has to be present there. So from a tracking perspective, I'm going to say that's not crucial. But from a mixing perspective, yes, I do want people to send me their stuff, to entrust it to us so that we can get a cohesive, big, and loud recording that's just going to sound professional. That's what we're looking for.
Understood. And I appreciate your ethos and your honesty and all these questions too. And before I send it off, I always ask all my guests. Actually, before I do that, where did Pinchfist come from? What's the name from? I don't think I've asked that yet.
Well, the entire idea of the character itself, other than to be educational and sort of comedic, is that his archetype is sort of a B-movie mad scientist, like Reanimator, Young Frankenstein sort of thing. I'm not saying those are B-movies, just that kind of vibe. But, a name is kind of important. So originally the show was called Budget Gear Science, and Dr. Pinchfist was just the name of the character. And the term Pinchfist being another way of saying a cheapskate, a tightwad, somebody who absolutely does not like to spend money.
Okay, got it. That makes more sense.
And so we were just like, well, what if that's his entire persona? He's a cheap doctor that, he makes the best of what he's got for as little as possible. And that just kind of turned into the basis of the show is this crazy East European mad scientist that's going to show you how to get the best bang for the buck if you're home recording and you're just starting. And no, I'm not going to spend $10,000 on a keyboard. That's ridiculous.
Fuck yeah. I love all of that. All right, so I asked this to all my guests. What would you say is your rad message that you'd like to send out into the sonosphere, the internets, and to the people out there paying attention?
Well, first thing I would say, since we're all kind of stuck indoors right now, and we're probably spending a lot of time on our laptops and phones anyway, take the time to learn something new, whether you're getting into audio production or recording, songwriting, or anything like that, this is a great time to learn, especially if you have to stay at home. Why not? Because there's a wealth of information out there that can all be useful to you. And also, this would be a great time to maybe discover some new bands that you might not have heard of, especially if they're smaller bands. You know, to mention a few here in Arizona that I'm personally a fan of. Fireglass, Pyrotechnica, Evasion, Lethian, Ash to Dust, Stands with Fists, and Hazen. That's just off the top of my head. Those are my 6. But you know, make the most of what you can with this time and just learn whatever you can. Now's the time to learn a new skill. And also subscribe to this dude. Check and.
As to you. And good sir, anything you'd like to say to the people?
Well, first of all, subscribe to him, as Cole just said. Amazing guy. Very, very nice, and he's given me a lot of tequila. So if I'm slurring through the recording, you know why? Because he has like a never-ending amount of tequila in his kitchen, I guess. So, the rad message that I want to give out, it might be a lengthy one.
Go for it.
Okay. Audio production is only limited by yourself. And I'm going to be very open about this. My first audio production that I ever did in my life, I was about 20 years old. I'm, how old am I? 32?
Lies! Lies! You're 17. It's all a lie.
I'm-
It's a fake beard.
I think I'm 32.
What year were you born?
1987. So you do the math, okay? I think I'm 80.
You're 30.
I'm 82. I think I'm 32. So, anyways, my first recording was in my 20s, and I literally used a gooseneck web chat microphone to record my first song. And I didn't go through loops or electronic things. I literally recorded stuff. I did multi-tracking techniques. I would record a drum with just a single microphone, a shitty desktop. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say.
Yeah, you can curse,
Okay.
shit fuck.
Okay,
Piss,
shit
shit.
fucking gooseneck microphone that just plugged in directly to the sound card of your laptop, not even with an interface involved. It was just directly connected through Audacity, and I'm very proud of that recording because of the limitations I had. So the more limitations I had, the more creative I was. Of course, it would take like 1,000 takes to get something working. I would spend too much time doing it, but still, even with those extreme limitations, I was able to record and concoct a whole song, a whole metal, prog rock, ambitious song. Like it was like an 11, 12-minute song, and I did 2 of those. And to this day, I still hear it, and I smile because I'm like, wow, I recorded that with just one microphone. It was the shittiest microphone available, and I would record it through Audacity. So everybody thinking about what DAW should I use, what microphone should I use, what gear should I use, that's my great example.
Just do it.
Just do it. If you want to record a song, get started. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be ugly. There's going to be sweat and tears involved. But just start. Just do it. Don't be afraid. Don't limit yourself.
And despite what a lot of gear forums might tell you, unfortunately, there is no magical program or plugin that's going to make you good. You're going to get good by practicing and refining your craft. So whatever you have, again, we're all kind of stuck inside right now, so this would be the time to do the research and get started. Even if you just have a gooseneck mic and Audacity.
A shit fuck gooseneck mic.
Yeah.
A shit fuck gooseneck mic.
Yeah, that's my message. If you want to record, just start recording. Don't ask questions. Just do it and then ask questions. Then you can make sure, okay, why was there so much latency between my recordings? why is there so much air in my recordings? Why, you can ask the questions
Dig
after.
deeper after.
After, but not before. Because before, you haven't done anything yet.
You're gonna if you start asking a whole bunch of questions before you even try, you're gonna end up overwhelming yourself, and then it's just going to seem like a super tall order and maybe an impossible task. So just dive into it, start doing it, learn as you go, refine your craft and your skills, and then you're starting at the very bottom, so you can only go up from there.
Yep, and record for free. Help your friends. Help your brother that wants to do a cover. Whatever. Just record, man. Just start doing audio production, and then you can ask the bigger questions once you know how to ask the questions. I guess that's the problem, right? Like, people are just asking questions, but they really don't know how to ask the questions. You're only going to get half responses, bad information in that sense. So once you understand what you're looking for, that's when you actually learn, but you have to start from somewhere. So that's how I started. And, once you get the nice gear, you'll know how to use it by then, because you'll know why you bought it, why you need it.
Understand your why and just record. Do it. Follow your passion. Go out, make the thing, learn from it, but first do. So again, thank you so much for coming on the K-RAD Radio Podcast. Dr. Pinchfist, Audio Pladen, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, share. All of their links will be in the bio. And I hope you have a great evening, everyone. Good night.